Good evening, everyone, and welcome to In the Know with CaT Bobino. And today, my extra special guest is Dr. Ashley Taylor, who is a analytical chemist. I knew I was going to say that wrong. Oh, my goodness. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, for the audience, can you tell us what is an analytical chemist?
Yeah, so as an analytical chemist, we typically look at things, specifically in my research was more so in spectroscopy. That's where I kind of, started off as an analytical chemist, looking at many different methods such as mass spec, fluorescence spectroscopy, HPLC. And it wasn't until I got to LSU where my analytical chemistry was a bit different, where I was pretty much looking at surface chemistry and analyzing that using atomic force microscopy. And so in there, we use different statistical methods. We do different patterning methods and imaging to kind of analyze, chemistry on different surfaces. And so within the analytical chemistry realm, I've seen the fluorescence side as well as the surface chemistry side.
Okay, and for us non-STEM people who may be in the audience, what is surface chemistry?
So surface chemistry, so the way that I like to think about it is, looking at skin, right? Understanding the chemistry that might be present there. With my surface chemistry, I was kind of introducing different chemicals to kind of pattern different sequences of compounds on top of each other on the surface. And I can customize that based on, whatever compound I was interested in looking at, depending on the type of method I would use for instrumentation. So within AFM, maybe I was looking at something that might be conductive. So making sure I'm looking at something that had a metal surface. Maybe I'm just trying to track different bioanalytical pathways on a surface. So how I bind that to the top of my skin, maybe I can see what's happening there. So typically, doing atomic force microscopy, it was at the nanoscale. So very, very, very tiny. But it was awesome to see, things that happen at the molecular level.
Oh, that's really, really cool. So that's a lot. As someone who decided to do biology instead of chemistry, this was a good reminder as to why I chose biology.
I tell people people that do biology, your minds are just ridiculous. Like the amount of things that you can keep in there. Because for me, I'm like, okay, there was a cell and things happened and it moved around and went around the body. But chemistry for me, it was kind of like, okay, there's these compounds and add heat and things happen and you can check the temperature flow and how fast they go. So, you can't do one without the other. They always come in together some kind of way. But to you biologists, I take my hat off to you.
Well, thank you. We are in admiration of each other at this point. So, what made you go into chemistry, analytical chemistry? What made you decide to do that route?
So growing up, I always knew that I was interested in STEM, and that was just mainly in part to my parents, introducing that to us early. So my brother and I, we originally grew up in Queens, New York, moved over to Piscataway, but my dad he studied computer electrical engineering, and my mom worked in the OR at NYU. And so we always had some type of introduction to science, whether that was through their careers, maybe it was science labs, science fairs, science museums. So I was always interested in the science realm. It wasn't until I got to high school where, you're trying to decide hey, now I gotta go to college, what do I want to study? And for me, I was always a hands-on learner. I always enjoyed my experiments. But I just wasn't sure. And my chemistry teacher in high school, I'll never forget. Right, Carter. We're going to talk about my teacher in high school.
He said, well, I'm not even with teachers yet, and I know they are.
Exactly. So I remember I had a big meet one weekend. And I came in for a test. Totally forgot I had a test. This was my chemistry course. I made a C on the exam, which was good for not studying because I forgot I had a test due to a track meet. But I was still upset because that takes a toll on your grade. And I remember my chemistry teacher letting my parents know, like, maybe she shouldn't focus on chemistry as a major. And for me, I
Mm.
took that as a challenge. I am somebody who will step up to a challenge and take it all the way. And so at that time, I'm applying to college and I'm like, hey, maybe I'll apply to chemistry. And I literally applied for only chemistry majors in all the universities I was applying to. And so that was kind of decided for me at that point. I didn't know what would bring me to here today, especially in analytical chemistry. Luckily enough, I had a great mentor who did research in
Yeah.
analytical, and he introduced me to the analytical side of chemistry.
Well, that's really good. I've actually interviewed another woman before who that's kind of the same route with physics. She's a
Mm-hmm.
bit older,
Mm-hmm.
and she was told in high school to go interview people in a job she thought she wanted. All
Yeah.
the people in physics were men. They all said women couldn't do physics. And
Uh-huh.
she was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, okay, well, I'm about to go do physics. And
Right.
she did.
And that's the thing, right? It's sometimes understanding, when you're in a moment of challenge, there will be people there that are knocking you down, especially as, Black people in STEM.
Hmm.
We're always told we can't do that. Look at how we're progressing in many different areas. So I kind of use that as motivation. It's literally my spark. Like when I defended my dissertation, I made sure to print out a copy for that chemistry teacher. I cannot find her, but my thing was, it was just a reminder of, like, you told me no, and imagine if I would have took her advice.
Hmm. And that's really cool that you decided not to take her advice and to go ahead and follow the dream that you wanted to do. So
Hmm.
I'll just take this moment to remind everyone we're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat. They will come here and we can see them and read them out loud for everyone. I got one from Steve saying nice opening graphics. Thank you.
Agreed.
Work in progress. So
Mhm.
but so back to you, Dr.
Mhm.
Taylor. That's really cool that you decided bump what you're saying. I messed up. I know I did on this
Right.
particular test, but that doesn't mean I can't do the work. And
Mhm.
so when you went to college and you graduated from LSU, right?
So I did my PhD and my master's at LSU, but I did my undergrad at Winston-Salem State University, which is the HBCU in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay, okay, okay. Well, welcome to the HBCU clan. I went to Stillman College in Alabama, so it's all about
Okay.
HBCUs. Uh-huh,
Yes. Yes. All day, every day.
uh-huh. All day. So
Right.
I was just about to say, I know when you go to a PWI, sometimes we, and especially in STEM, could be one of only or one of few. What
Right.
was your experience getting your PhD at LSU?
So my experience was pretty different in the sense of LSU. They actually used to be number one in producing PhDs in the chemistry department.
Oh.
So of course, when it came to recruiting, came to visiting the school, you see all of these Black and brown faces in the department, which is encouraging, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's already scary enough having to go through a doctoral program, but to see other people who look like you, fighting in the same fight and progressing and getting those positions, it was nothing but motivational. So by the time I got to the institution, it was me and three other girls in the same class, but we did have other mentors who were students in I guess, the higher class range, if you look at that. But we had to lean on each other. We were coming in with a different perspective. Three out of the four of
Mm-hmm.
us in the class came from HBCU, so kind of understanding that transition of, like, you know, in a HBCU, everybody looks like us, and we all progress.
Mm-hmm.
We all doing it. We have the support. We have the professors there and the mentorship to make sure we doing what we need to do, especially when our parents were not there on campus with us. So
Right.
we
Right.
had that. Whereas at LSU, although I had a little crew with me, I still had to seek that mentorship. So when it came to professors, there was only one Black man, amazing Black man,
Mm.
Professor Isaiah Warner. He was the only one in the department who, you know, was recruiting us, you know, who was like tending to us, mentoring us, making sure we
Right.
were on the right path. And so for me, I made sure to seek mentorship in other departments. So other people that looked like me who were higher up in their different departments. And I also seeked out different organizations. So I was a member in our Nova Shea chapter for LSU, which is very long name, National Organization for the Professional Advancement of Black Chemists and Chemical Engineers. So that's Nova
Wow.
Shea. And then I also was a member of the Black Graduate Professional Student Association. And so in there, you know, more students, graduate students who looked like me, who were in just different departments. And so it was just good to kind of keep that energy around so that this way, you know, we understood each other, we understood the goal, and we can motivate each other.
That's really good. That's really good because when you transition from a HBCU to a PWI, I don't think a lot of times people realize the real big change that happens. You know,
Mhm.
in an HBCU, you have people who are rooting for you. So,
Yes.
you know, if you decide to sleep in one day for a class, you might get a knock on the door like, don't do that
Right.
again.
Exactly. Whereas, you know, at LSU, like we only had a handful of those people doing that for us. And so, I
Right.
mean, it was definitely a difference. Like just looking at the campus was like, whoa, like, okay, I need to figure out how do I fit in here? How do I make a
Right.
name for myself and understand that, you know, there might be professors who are also not in agreement of supporting what it is I do. And, you know, I still have to navigate around that. And so, being sure to find that support, that team, you know, that sponsorship also. A lot of people speak about mentorship, but they don't mention the sponsorship piece. And
Hmm.
the sponsorships in the sense of you have people who advocate for you. When
Right.
it's time to make those big decisions on big moves within the program, you know, they can speak well on your name based on their experience with you. And so that's where I felt like I met that piece once I got to that PWI.
Well, that's really cool. That's really cool. So, were there any opportunities that were offered to you while you were doing your PhD or right after that you got through some of these organizations and some of the programs you did?
So, some of the opportunities were more so kind of sitting in leadership positions for the organizations, which
Okay.
was really good because, you know, as a scientist, you know, people tend to feel like we are kind of like just tunnel vision to the bench. They feel like we're more introverted. Whereas me,
Hmm.
I'm open. Like I will talk to anybody. I like to have a good time. And people always know me for that kind of bubbly personality in the sense of I'm personable. Like if you want to talk about stuff, oh yeah, Ashley talked to you. She know everybody. She network with
Yep.
everybody. So you know, being in those organizations, I was able to kind of hone in those skill sets in the sense of, you know, being able to network, collaborate, meet other people, so that this way they kind of seem like, oh, you know, this girl does have something in her, and that's allowed me to sit
Right.
on different executive positions within chapters of BGPSA as well as Novachet. You know, when it came to transitioning from LSU into my positions based on those interactions and the who you knows, right? Because as you network,
Hmm.
you know, you start meeting people in different places and they might know somebody that's over there. And so many opportunities have been brought to me as far as postdocs, positions at other big companies, which I didn't take on, but you know, those came from me networking within those specific spaces.
Well, that's really good because yes, we don't understand sometimes that how important it is to network, and including myself when I was a lot younger, it being able to sell yourself can sometimes be difficult. But just being open-minded and saying this is what I like and this is what I do is enough to sell yourself, and you never know who's listening and who might take you to a level you didn't know about. So that's
You
really
know,
cool.
it's funny you bring up that point because it reminds me, I remember it was my first Novachet conference. It was in Orlando, Florida. And I was just talking with this group of people, had no idea who they were, but you know, we were pretty much always sitting together at every single activity, every lunch and dinner.
Hmm.
And then next thing you know, I get an email towards the end of the conference from this, again, I don't know who these people are, don't remember their names at that moment. I get an email saying, you know, you're going to be an award recipient. And I'm like, are they talking to me? Because again, you know, Ashley Taylor is such a common name. And so I'm like, I don't know if they meant they like I was receiving an award. Like, I don't know what I did to get no award, but I don't think it's me. And next thing you know, when I go to the award ceremony, it was the group of people that I was hanging with the whole time. And even them, they were like, we didn't even know that this was you. Like, we've been talking to you this whole time, and we didn't realize that it was you that we were talking to who'd be receiving this award. And so it was an award to go to any ACS conference I wanted to go to within the next year, which was awesome because, again, they paid for me to go to ACS, paid for me to present my research and kind of network, build out that network of people in, I went to San Diego, California.
Well, that's really cool that you got all those opportunities. What were your next steps once you got your PhD? What did you do after that?
So once I got my PhD, it was actually a very humble beginning. Okay, very humble in the sense of, so something that I didn't mention earlier was I was always interested in getting into beauty, getting into makeup, but I wasn't sure how to go about that. You know, not a lot of people talk about the science behind, you know, the beauty world. And so, of course, I had a mentor who I was talking to who is flourishing. You know, this woman is literally, I am in awe of her. And every time I see her on a screen or anywhere, I'm like, I can't believe I know this woman. I can't believe I've been able to talk with this woman about her journey. And, you know, I'm starting my journey in that realm. And so with talking with her, she was kind of coaching me on things and opportunities kind of came through. It was a recruiter that called me. And he legit said, hey, you know, are you still interested in the positions? Are you looking? And I'm like, yeah, I'm still interested. At the time, I had turned down a postdoc because I didn't want to go back into the academic setting.
Right.
I really wanted to get into a consumer company. And so, you know, he said, hey, you know, I have a position for a technician at a beauty company. And for me, I had to take a seat back and I'm like, I did all these years of school, got my PhD, my master's, my bachelor's in chemistry, and all you're offering me is a technician position. And, you know, I had to take a seat back and understand, you know, when it came to many different other consumer companies, a lot of them were looking for experience. And I didn't have that experience. I was only in school. So I thought, you know, okay, even though it's a technician role, I can at least get in the door of beauty, kind of get around people, network with these people, collaborate with these people, learn the stuff that they're talking about, you know, talk the talk, walk the walk, and at the same time interview and try to get another role, but at least now I have something to talk about within that beauty realm. And so within 6 months of being that technician, I actually landed a permanent scientist role with the company, and where I was formulating many different anti-aging beauty products for 2 different brands and partnering with even a bigger brand. So it was a humbling start, but it was an amazing start to get in the door that kind of just took off as soon as that door kind of opened.
Right. So the reason that we are doing the podcast and how I found you on Instagram, you say that you are all things beauty and STEM. So I love that. So you're looking on the other side, the chemical side, the making of the products, right?
Yes.
And so is this always been something you was interested in, like the beauty products and things like that, or did that come later?
Yeah, so I was always interested in that. Even growing up as a child, you know, I was interested in beauty. I remember my mom getting like her Avon things, getting me all the lip glosses, or, you know, you had the Scholastic book fairs, right? And I'm trying to buy the beauty. I want to make the lip gloss. Like, I wasn't getting the book. I want to make the lip gloss. And so, you know, like I said, it almost was taboo to talk about it because you never really heard anybody talk about the scientific side of that. And so, you know, it wasn't until I got to undergrad, I would talk about it all the time. Like, I'm going to work for a makeup company. I'm going to work for MAC. I'm going to work for L'Oreal. I'm going to do all this, right? But, you know, at the same time, it was a matter of gaining many skill sets in science to figure out, you know, what's going to be applicable once I get to that stage. And so when the opportunity actually came, I always say it was nothing but God, because I'm like, I don't know how this came about. Like, when you look at my rap sheet on the science that I've done, the publications that I have, the presentations that I've done, there's nothing about beauty in there. But for me, it was always a personal goal to get into that realm. And so making sure I was networking with those people, you know, reading those people. I joined the Society of Cosmetic Chemists to kind of talk with people, to kind of understand, you know, what their path was. And so to finally, you know, joined a company where now I'm a scientist, I get to formulate, you know, anti-aging beauty products. So cleansers, masks, moisturizers, serums, you name it, I've touched or seen some part of it, whether that was formulating it or, tracking reformulation or maybe doing stability on certain products to make sure that, they can last once it gets to a customer's shelf. And so for me, it was just amazing to kind of learn that side. It was definitely a different type of chemistry that I had to learn on the spot and at the same time produce. Because again, you're working for a company that's giving products to people. So I want to make sure that they're safe. But at the same time, it was just so much, it was just amazing to kind of learn in that space because I wanted to be in that space for so long. So I was kind of more into it. Like I was passionate about it. Like I want to read everything about it. Any conference there was, I was trying to get to it. So being able to be in that space, it was kind of very eye-opening, but an exciting eye-opening because I've been wanting it for so long.
That's really cool. So, I mean, people are going to listen to this podcast later and be like, oh, CaT was really quiet. Well, I was muted because somebody is screaming in my ear. So everyone who's watching, I have someone who is being very tormental
He
right
also
now and
has
screaming.
he has things he wants to say on the podcast too.
He really does. He really does. And I'm trying to give him a platform because he is going to burst your eardrums by screaming. But that is really cool. I've actually met another chemist before who was really into makeup, but I don't think I've ever heard of the society. I know you said it and I did not hear all of it thanks to someone, but the Society of Chemists who work with makeup. Like that's a
Yeah.
really cool thing.
Yeah, so it's pretty awesome. They have many chapters, I believe it's across the states. There might even be chapters globally. They have conferences annually. When I first joined, I was in undergrad. Now, this is how serious I was about being in this space. Like, I was in undergrad doing my research in the analytical side, but I reached out to these people because I'm like, look, I'm doing all this stuff. I'm doing all the chemistry, doing the research and all the stuff they tell me to do, but I need to know how do I get in the door. And so for me, at the time it was amazing because I was in North Carolina and I contacted the chair who was in New York because in my mind, I was always coming back to the North. And so I contacted the chair at the time in New York. He paid for my membership to be a member. So this way I had access to like the different journals. They would have different webinars and classes. And so it was just nice to, have access to that so that this way I can see, what are they doing in science? Because it's not typically something that you would see, on a paradigm at school.
Right.
So, with learning with that, they had many graduate programs, at the time kind of brewing. But I didn't join, a program strictly for makeup because I still kind of wanted to keep my range open in the sense of, do many different internships at different universities so that I could, number one, pick out where I wanted to go to graduate school, but also having in the back of my mind, depending on what school I go to, they had research that I felt would be applicable for me in the future. And so the society was very awesome, still a member to this day. Once I got into my career in beauty, I've attended the conferences. I mean, it's amazing. The many different beauty products that are out there, the science that goes behind them, the research that they're doing to develop technologies behind beauty, it's endless. And so to finally be in that world and kind of see the many different aspects of it, it just keeps going. And again, it just reminds me like, wow, you actually made it to that point to kind of see, what's happening on that side.
Yes, that's really cool. And again, I'm gonna take the time to remind everyone we're on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter live. So if you have questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll see them and say them out loud, or you can see them yourself. Which, like Steve said, amazing story, Ashley.
Thanks,
Wow. So that's really cool. What you got going on now. This question is a biased question and you can answer it or you don't have to, but what makeup do you prefer?
Okay, so for me, I am all over the place when it comes to that. But I will say a lot of I guess my makeup profile is Fenty. I enjoy Fenty because of the many different pigments that they have. I know growing up as I would use makeup, I would have to buy different type of colors to kind of match out what would be best for my shade.
Right.
And doing that because again, in the fall, you're one color, in the winter you're another color, then you're getting the tan, and in the summer, the spring. So,
Yep.
I just had to make sure I had some type of shade. And because there were many different shades within Fenty to get my in-betweeners, Definitely love that. And I love the high degree of pigments that they do use, because then you only need a little bit for that full coverage look. So definitely love Fenty. When it comes to lip products, people do not believe me when I say this. Um, and I never believed it. As soon as I put it on, I was like, "Oh, somebody lying! Like, what's it? What is this bottle?" So Wet and Wild, they have this line. I think it's Cat Suit or something like that, where it's the. Now I'm not wearing matte today, but it is the perfect matte and perfect pigmentation to the point where you can put it on and it lasts all day. I can rub my lips, all that, and it is still in place where it needs to be. So for me, I'm like, is this Wet Wild? I'm like, somebody lying. Y'all just put that sticker on there and said it was Wet Wild. But so that is my favorite. When I'm looking at highlighters, there's actually a friend from high school. She has a beauty line. It's called Shop Basic Beauty. I just started using her highlighters. And again, people are now paying attention to, as Black women, we need things with color that have great pigment, concentration of pigment, so they show up on your skin. So she did a great job of seeking out her vendors and her scientists to make sure they put together the right highlighters, because sometimes you put on a highlighter and it just looks like glitter. So, you want to make sure it looks blended, it's nice, it hits the angles correct. So I've been using Fenty, Wet and Wild, and for my brows, I definitely always go with the Anastasia Beverly line. So I'm all over the place. Like, I will try things, but yeah, I'm pretty much all over the place when it comes to that.
And that is all good. You gotta pick and choose which ones work for you.
Right.
I don't wear a lot of makeup, and I would have had lipstick on tonight, but I had to go to a doctor's appointment. I have a mask on all this whole time, so I was just like, man, I'm not gonna wear no lipstick. But and people gonna laugh at me and probably yell at me later for this, but there's a dollar store called Daiso's, Japanese like dollar store, whatever.
Okay.
But they have this like Japanese lip gloss that is amazing to me, and it's like a matte and it just stays.
Yes, because so I know a lot of times, when we were developing our skincare lines, we always looked at J Beauty and K Beauty, because they, over there, it pretty much across Asia, they have the beauty game down as far as understanding innovative like technologies, innovative products, regimens and so forth. Depending on whether you go K Beauty, J Beauty, they're going down from historic, what it is they used back then and how they implement it today. So no, I would definitely like to see what that lip gloss is, because again, we kind of use that as a way to kind of understand, what's coming, what's hot now, like what is happening, how do we implement these into the products on this side of the world.
Oh, okay, innovative.
So you might be ahead of the game right now. You ahead of the game right now.
I'm gonna take it. All right. So Steve asked, do you get into the lash side of beauty industry? So the eyelashes.
Okay, so I personally have not. I had a friend who worked in there, which it's very high pigmentation. Formulation is very interesting because these are thick things that have to stick to the eye and kind of last and not smudge around. But I am somebody who is, because when it comes to makeup and I want the easiest process ever, I just go get my lashes done. I get them done. I don't know how to put on a strip lash, or like I tried a few times and just did not get it. But I have not worked in that industry. I've had friends who worked in that industry, which was cool because I got to see different products and kind of understand formulation on that side. But me personally, I have not worked in that space.
Well, I have like a brand new package of those magnetic lashes. I have not tried them yet, but I'm like, you know what? I can't do the whole glue, set it.
I can't do it. Right. They tell you to cut it to make sure it fit. I tried and I could never get it. I couldn't, it'll be all the way above the lash line. And so for me, I just go get them done. That's one less thing I have to worry about. And for the days that I don't want to wear makeup, I'm like, okay, at least I have that and I could go with my day and I look somewhat presentable for my day.
Yeah. Well, I have a 4-month-old son, so I'm not, and it's a pandemic, so I'm going nowhere. So I'd be like, I'm gonna wear these magnetic lashes one day. I don't know what day, but one day I'm gonna smack them on and be like, yep.
Then we're gonna be out the door.
And I'm gonna be like, look at me.
Exactly.
I'm out here.
Exactly.
So that's, oh man, so that's really cool. So do you currently still work in the makeup? chemistry side of
So
makeup?
actually, I have moved on into the business side of things. For
Okay.
me, it was very fun working in that space. Still have a lot of interest in that space, but there were other
Mm-hmm.
things I wanted to kind of learn about the business, so that this way, as I climb the ladder in my company, I now have a well-rounded view as to how to go to market, and go to market in the sense of being a scientist on the beauty side and being at a smaller company that was acquired by a bigger company, I got to see the end to end. So end to end meaning, with marketing, I'm seeing their ideation. We're having those discussions to say, what is it that we want to put out on this product line? Then you
Right.
have scientists making things to kind of see if this fits what marketing wants to see, fitting what consumers want, working with technical transfer to scale it up so they can produce this product, working with project management to make sure that we're on time. Aside from being on time, getting things, making sure we're compliant, we're working with
Mm-hmm.
regulatory to make sure we're using ingredients that we're supposed to be using that won't hurt people, testing with clinical micro. And that was all great for understanding the R&D process to get this final product, to get whatever that facial wash is or whatever that mask is. But then it was kind of understanding like, well, what conversations are we having with our consumers to understand if this is what they even want? Aside from if this is what we want, what are we putting in front of them? What kind of content are we putting in front of them? What kind of deals or promotions are we running in stores to make sure that we're still competitive, against many of the other, people that are putting around the same products. And so now I'm a senior analyst on that side, mainly looking into data analytics behind, what's driving the consumer to our product to understand how do we become more profitable. And so I get to work with brands not only in beauty but in other consumer spaces, so such as pain and allergy, and body, also still within skincare, to kind of understand, what are those profitable practices that we should be implementing so that this way people will buy into our products. They feel that they're getting something out of it and our company is getting something out of it as well. So my STEM has switched from, the hard wet bench sciences to now more so the data analytics behind, what's happening with what it is we're putting out on the market.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. That's really cool. That you're now on the business aspect of it. I think sometimes people don't realize when it comes to STEM, you don't have to stay in this one particular aspect of it. You don't, if you start off as a research scientist, you don't actually have to stay a research scientist. You can take the knowledge that you've gained and create a new job or go further in your field.
Mhm.
So I'm really glad that you've had that opportunity. You can share that there's more to it than just the bench work. Now you can do the business side of it. Where do you see this going and progressing in the next couple of years?
Yeah. So for me, even just speaking to the point you just said, I didn't know myself until I got into that space. For me, it was, while you're in graduate school or even in undergrad, you hear that you're in a STEM area, and then they're like, okay, you're going to do R&D, or you're going to go be a professor and run a research lab, and I'm like, I don't want to do
Mm-hmm.
that. I want to be a consumer. And so for me, being in this space, I had mentors kind of, telling me that, you have skill sets that can be reached out to other places. Like you can use them. For me, I was just like, oh, I can formulate things. You need me to tap into my surface chemistry side. I could bring out the instrumentation that you need me to do. Like, it came to a point where people would come to me and ask me questions about my science and my chemistry. But there were also other skill sets, like I said, that networking piece, that collaborating piece, those soft skills. That's what allowed me to jump now into this more business developed role. And so, what I see for my future is I'm trying to figure out how do I bridge the gap between the education behind the chemistry that happens behind our consumer products and bringing it to the consumer. So for me, it was always about, when I joined beauty, I wanted to be a scientist that could educate them on the science that's happening in our products. And one piece of information, one of my mentors, she said this, and it always stuck in my head was, when everybody wanted things that were natural, everything had to be natural. I only want to put natural things on my body. She was like, her example was if you look at an apple that has a chemical structure, right? Water is a compound. right? That's
Mm-hmm.
chemistry. Sometimes it's just a matter of kind of understanding, why it is we use certain compounds in formulation, or why it is you might see a specific chemical in a product that you're buying. And so I feel like if we're more open about the education behind that, people will be a little bit more open to, science is advancing certain technologies, so you don't have to wait as long for things to happen. So for me, I'm still interested in kind of driving that point home so that people kind of feel more comfortable using different products. But at the same time, I kind of want to be in a seat where I can make those decisions on the strategy behind, okay, we've made this product. How do we put it in front of people? How do we educate people about that? So for me, it would be maybe looking more so on the customer strategy side, in the sense of strategizing how we get those products out there. And aside from
Mm-hmm.
getting them out there, how do we reel in the consumer to understand what it is we're doing and kind of continue to build that trust, so that this way they will buy into our products versus the competitor. So right now I'm interested in looking at all cases. I feel like all cases in the sense of, if I understand how to make pain products look sexy, right? Beauty, it's easier to look sexy. Like, we're always talking about, hey, like, this is beautiful, that looks great, that's enhancing this.
Mm-hmm.
But then how do you do that for a pain product? How do you do that for an allergy product? So I think that, if I am able to learn those skill sets and apply them, I can kind of innovate a different pathway or a different outlook or an approach to showing that for the beauty side.
So I had my own idea. Well, it's not my idea, it's something I saw on TV for beauty, but then you threw it to pain and allergy, and I was like, well, I don't know. I have no clue what to do with that. But I think it was like an old school commercial, maybe in the 50s, where a woman went to like this beauty products place, and it was like in London or France or something. And so they were testing all these powdered minerals on her face. And so
Mhm,
they realized it was like a combination of three to get the color she needed. So they
mhm,
took all these powders, put it into a tumbler, tumbled them together, and then pressed it into the makeup compartment or whatever, so
mhm.
that she had her personalized, makeup compact to go home with.
Yeah.
And like, to me, I was like, that's really cool. I wish they kind of did that now with
Mhm.
different pigments, where they can just say, hey, we're going to meld it all together and personalize your exact pigment.
Yeah.
I've always thought that was something. I know you can't do it for everyone, like there's millions of people, but a few people, and put that on TV, and people are like, oh my God, yeah, it's
I feel like
personal.
it's definitely possible, because a lot of companies are now moving more towards like the personalized feel, right? So it was
Mm-hmm.
almost as if they went to, you just buy your products in the store. Then there was a moment of the DIY kind of tapping in, and then now, like, I'm seeing commercials on like the Curology, right? You can show them like your skin issues, you send it in, and they send you exactly what you need to take care of that, and that's specific to your skin. What works for
Right.
you may not work for somebody else. So I feel like, that's definitely something that is possible, because again, a lot of companies are moving towards, what's going to work specifically. How do we building that trust with that consumer to let them know we're keeping you in mind as we're formulating what it is we're doing. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see, that kind of be on the map in a special place. I remember, at least in New York, there was a place where I can't remember what this store was called. But you can go in the store, and it was for lipstick, and you can go in there, you can kind of pick out which pigments that you wanted specifically. And it was kind of like you're brought into the process of making the lipstick that you want for you, for your shade. So it was cool. It was like a store, like you can go in, you can do a tour, you can make your own lipsticks and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that does come out on the market.
That's really cool. Yeah. They need to do more like that. I mean, post pandemic, but they need to do
Mhm,
stuff like that. That would be really cool. And then I
mhm,
remember talking to someone, I can't remember what her field was, but what she was working in, I think the engineering aspect of it, it was like a bioengineering, but they would take your blood sample,
mhm.
and then whatever is wrong with you, they would use your DNA to construct a medication directly for you.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I know. I recently talked to her like in the last 2 months,
Mhm.
but she did like bioengineering, so that's coming up into the
It is.
process.
It is because again, like, we can put many products out there on the market and like we were saying, what works for one may not work for other. And, based on what that science is that they're driving in home, they might be able to create things to kind of prevent measures of things that could happen to you later on down the line. So yeah, it's definitely a place where personalization is becoming a great idea. It is rolling up in many different companies, just to make sure that we're keeping the consumer in mind. Because at the end of the day, you're spending your dollars with us. You're investing in us to make sure we're enhancing whatever the category may be. And so I feel like bringing the consumer first should always be what it is you're pushing off of, because they're the ones that's going to pour the money into you at the end of the day.
Right. And so again, last reminder everyone, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And so if you have questions, comments, please put them in the chat. We can see them. We'll show them. Back when we were still talking about lashes, Steve had mentioned something about May Brown at I Plus Lash. Pretty sure
Okay.
he's shouting somebody out, which is
Okay.
fine by me. I am all about everyone getting a check. So
I will
we
definitely
get
look that out.
make sure you look them up and check them out if you're interested in eyelashes. So thank you, Steve, for sending that. But anyway, so it's really amazing. You've gone this journey. You had parents who kind of pushed you into STEM, or at least opened your mind to the possibilities of STEM. Going into college, you had one teacher in high school who was like, you can't do chemistry. And now look at you doing amazing things in chemistry. And then working into the beauty line, behind the scenes, the business aspect. Hopefully in the next few years things will progress where it'll be, make it more personalized and people can really see the behind the scenes. Now, are there things behind the scenes maybe we shouldn't see? Maybe we should be just a little
you
bit
know
blind.
and when I think about that, I really can't think of anything. And I say that only because I remember when I was working for a particular brand, we used to do a lot of competitive analysis, and a lot of that would be just sometimes just going into a store, right? And we would go into our Sephora's and our Ultas just to kind of see, what's out there, what's on the shelves, what are people talking about. And I would hear, a lot of the customers saying, oh, I want hyaluronic acid in my product. I need to make sure this product has mandelic acid in here. And so people are well aware as to what is in their product. And also, for me, like I said, for me, I like to be very transparent. And I feel like by being transparent about that ingredient play, you build the trust of your consumer. And so by hearing what it is that they want, hearing how they talk about things, being able to educate them behind what it is they're talking about, understanding why those certain ingredients are in a product, I feel like they'll feel more comfortable to try new products with you. Like, you might have certain brands where you're like, okay, I only use this face wash because I feel comfortable, but I'm a little nervous to try a serum or something like that. I feel like if the brands are kind of talking about it, you can, I mean, this is public knowledge. You can go on the websites, they'll have dictionaries there to kind of let you know of what's in their products and so forth. I feel like that'll bring people more open to, trying new things in your product line. A lot of times we try to innovate, but we're innovating, making sure that, this is something that is a need. This is something that consumers are actually wanting. And so, for me, I feel like the more transparent you are, the more buy-in you get from your consumer, and the more they're willing to try other new things that you might put out on the table. So I don't think that there's anything in there that I wouldn't show on that side. Again, the many different areas are very important to get that product out there. And so I think that as we're transparent about that, as we kind of let them know, it's kind of letting them into our home in the sense of, this is what I have, this is what I bring to you indoor and outdoor. Like, what you get from me in home, you'll get from me on the outside. So I think the transparency piece plays a very big role in developing that trust between the consumer and whoever the company may be.
Yeah, that's exactly the word I was about to use, is the trust factor. When you have a trust in the company you're using, then you're going to maintain it, use it more, and even share that product with other people. I know I took a business class many years ago, but
Mhm.
the main objective is you can advertise all you want to. Word of mouth is truly still the best. Even if word of mouth is social media, word of mouth is always going to be your best bet to sell a product. So as
Yeah,
long as
I
some,
definitely agree there because,
Mhm.
even now, so in my role now, I look at, pretty much how do consumers engage with what is it that we're putting out there? And in the sense of the different claims messaging that our products will have. Now that we're in, we're living in a pandemic and you can't get to the store readily to try on a product, right? Now you're relying on reviews. So you're
right.
hoping that people are talking about what it is that you're doing. And based on those reviews, which is now our word of mouth today, since we're not in person anymore, that's what's going to help bring that customer in to say, hey, this person was talking about that. I keep seeing people, they have all these stars and stuff, let me try this product. And so I believe that that transparency will definitely keep bringing those consumers in.
Oh yes, as someone who spends way too much time on Amazon, those stars really lets us know, maybe this is a good product for me to buy.
Yes, for sure. I'm the same way. So yes, I will look at a review all day, every day. Being on the seeing that beauty side, I do look at ingredients and make sure that whatever it is they're calling out does match up to what their ingredient list is saying. But yes, I still live off of reviews. I feel like by seeing if it's working for somebody else, and it's working for a lot of people, let me try it. Let me see if that works for me.
Exactly. I'm just like because especially when you're talking about a certain product and then you get on Facebook or Instagram, somehow you get the commercial or the ad for that product,
Mhm.
and if we all know the phone listens to us, whatever, we know at this point. But you're gonna get the product. And I have a partner who loves technology, and he'll see it and he'll go straight to it like, oh, that looks good, I'm gonna buy it. And I'm like, no, look at the reviews. You can't just jump and buy
You
this
can't do
thing.
that, right? We got to see what people are talking about.
You got to say, and then you see, oh, this product is from overseas and it's crappy and it didn't do this. That's why I'd be like,
You got to read the reviews. Got to
you
read
got
the
to read
reviews.
the reviews. So, I am working on my beauty aspect. I'm really
Mhm.
comfortable with someone else doing my makeup,
Mhm.
but I need to learn how to do my own makeup.
Mhm.
And whew, I love drag queens, and then I see their
Oh,
makeup, and I'm just like,
yes. I
wow.
mean, I mean, they go all in. They take the risk. They bring the colors together. Like me, I'll look at a palette and I'll be like, nah, I don't know how to. Sometimes I could get them like, I feel like this can run off into this color and that'll be a nice ombre. But they bring it all the way home. I absolutely
Hmm.
love it. Now, granted, I am the type of person where I'm very quick with my makeup. I need something that's high pigment, ready to go, because I like to be 1, 2, 3 done and out the door. When they're doing it, it takes time. It takes
Mm,
many hours to get that look. And if I'm doing all that, I need you to see that look the whole week. Like I'm not washing this off because everybody must see what I have put together. So
right.
I come that. I wish I could do it. I wish I could do it because they slay it every time.
Every time, every time, and I just be like, "Oh, you making me as a woman, a born woman, just look bad." But that's cool, because I'm still clap for you. But you making
Yes,
me look bad,
yes.
But it is amazing that the
Mhm.
amount, the beauty that they can bring from makeup. And yes, looking at the palette, my palettes sometimes are this big because I'm like, a good 6 colors is good for me. I'm not.
Right. I will try to dab in there and see if it works, but yeah, I'm like, let me just get what I need to do, get the natural beat, and be out the door. If anything,
That's
I'm
it.
always like,
That's
I'm
it.
good for a pop in lip because that's the most color I can. I'm like, this I can't mess up. I can't mess this up. It's just that one color. It goes boom. But yeah, some of those palettes, I'm like, I don't even know where to start. So I'm gonna just play around and
Mm-mm.
see what happened, and we're gonna keep it moving.
If you got green in your palette, I probably even looked over it because I was like, "What am I gonna wear? Green and green eyelash, pattern? Like, I'm not doing that. That looks terrible. I'm gonna look like a clown. Mm-mm, not doing it." But thank you, Dr. Taylor, for taking the time to talk with us tonight. If anyone is interested in learning more about you, how can they find you, either social media or anything like that? What's the best way to find you?
I would definitely say the best way to get to me, easiest way to find me is if you looked on my LinkedIn page, it's under Ashley Taylor, PhD. So spelled exactly like my name, just add PhD, and that's probably the easiest way to find me.
Cool, cool. And is there any last thing you want to share before we go?
For me, I always put out the message, trust the scientists. And trust the scientists in the sense of, no matter what's going on, what it is you're looking into, products, for me, it's we have been around plenty of years to try to develop easier ways, quicker ways to solve problems, to solve issues. And so, we have an idea as to what it is we're doing. We have insight as to what it is we're doing. So when it comes to products and stuff like that, as you're reading things, trust the scientists and ask questions. Even look up things. The knowledge is out there, especially when it comes to. So for me, it's like I always have the conversations with my friends as far as natural versus this. Like we shouldn't wear this and da da da. My thing is like, yes, there are certain things that you may want to stay from if they're in greater quantities, but when it comes to products, they're not at that great quantity to where it should cause harm. If there are irritants that you break out from, of course, stay away from those. But day to day, we're working to make sure that we're providing science that works in products that'll get you results as quick as we can, but also keeping efficiency in mind or efficacy in mind. So definitely, challenge the scientists, talk to us, ask us those questions. We're there to help develop, make things easier. We have many technology that didn't exist in the past to kind of solve problems. And so, I feel like, by doing this program, this is kind of opening that insight into what a scientist is doing day to day to kind of make sure that we're producing for what people want. And again, to build out that trust factor.
Really, that's a really good answer. Really good response. I think anyone listening, watching today, or you're going to listen later on, which is fine by me, make sure that you take that and eat it, swallow it down, put that all up in there, you know,
All up in there.
all up in there. We want to trust the people who actually studied the stuff and maybe not the
Mhm.
ones who found things on the internet. So,
Yes.
yeah, that just
Sometimes the bloggers they scare people away, and it's like, sometimes they didn't do their research on this stuff too. So again, if you have any scientists near you, access to them, please, just stem up a conversation. Feel free to challenge them. I'm not saying we know everything. There are some things where we have to look further into to understand, how to come up with an answer or how to answer a problem. But that's what scientists are. We are problem solvers. And so, by seeking, insight into what it is that we're doing day to day and how science plays a role, I definitely say, talk to a scientist. I'm pretty sure you can feel a little bit more comfortable about where you stand on what it is you're purchasing and so forth.
right. I would say the mark of a good scientist is someone who can say, I don't know. You know,
There it is. There it is.
that's a good mark of a scientist. So, all right. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. I'm going to close this out now. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Anytime.
All right, everyone. Thank you for watching In the Know with CaT Bobino tonight. My extra special guest, Dr. Ashley Taylor, who is an analytical chemist. Make sure you watch, like, and share. We will be coming back next Wednesday, same time, same place, this time with Jungle Jordan, who is someone who works a lot with wildlife, and he's going to tell his story and the things that he is doing. So I hope you guys are having a wonderful Wednesday evening and have a good night.